right, I'm gonna start the meeting.
There you go.
There you go. He's in charge.
All right. You all set, Nancy?
Yes.
All right, I guess we'll start with the minutes approval. Did you guys all read those while we were hanging out? Good. So, make a motion to approve the minutes.
There's two sets there.
Shoot, one second.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, actually, no, you don't have, you can just
All right,
say
I'll
them both.
make a motion to approve the minutes from October 9th and November 20th.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All right, and now the Shellfish Department update.
The biggest update right now is that we're trying to consolidate all of our shellfish, all of our oysters, and get as many as we think are survivable and predator-proof to get distributed, to put them out around the harbor, so that we then are taking in racks and consolidating seed to be pitted. So we're kind of doing the same thing that a lot of grant holders are doing right now. We kind of had a up and down month when it came to the Pier Rocks area, because we had to close it a lot due to the presence of boats out front, so that was an issue, and a lot of back and forth with intertidal pickers and boat operators. I think we should look at it next year, whether we just wait to open it till this time of year when we know all the wrecked boats have been taken out and we'll be staging in the front, or we did, per Dave's suggestion, rig up a flag. And ever since, of course, we rigged it up, we haven't had to close it, but that new area has been a little difficult. The other thing that happened is that we did not pass water quality inspection for a certain area in Duck Creek, so we had to create a very small prohibited triangle behind the Mooney's building. We have not had any problems with that. It's a very, very mucky area anyway. There's not a lot of shellfish that we can see in there, so it hasn't been an issue. But these are all kind of developments that have to do with our water quality, changing the way that traditional shellfish beds are managed. So it's just something to keep in mind for the future, and I think all of our efforts at water quality cleanup and stuff are important. And I think I've been attending all of the wastewater committee meetings, and I'm going to continue to do that, not only so that obviously the Shellfish Department can weigh in on certain ideas, but also just to keep abreast of some of the really good options that the town will have to protect its water, because that will in turn protect our shellfish. Bay Scout season is going great guns. Boats are getting their limits every time they fish, and there's been a lot of, let's say, oversight management going on for bay scallops, and I think that in the winter we'll be taking on boat regulations as a big picture item, and one of the things that I do want to look at in particular is the 20% rule for bycatch, because I'm not really sure. I don't know how it got on there, and I haven't been able to find, and I don't think it's serving a purpose, so that might be something we want to look at actually taking away. What else? Johnny did a great talk with the University of Pennsylvania last month, and so our education efforts continue. And if you have any questions, really our biggest thing right now is I'm spending a ton of time preparing budget and answering questions, both from the shellfishing community and others.
Just out of curiosity, when you guys grow the oysters out, and you said you distributed 30 bushels, do you guys put them in a certain area? Do you do some to the recreational and some to the commercial, and do you like let the guys know who are picking that area, or you just kind of spread them and?
Yeah, we don't usually just broadcast out where we're broadcasting the oysters, but we've been concentrating on Chipman's and Indian Neck.
Just curious.
Yeah, we usually don't, really talk about where
Is that kind of out of fairness, or just?
exactly.
Is that all seed that's being?
There's some legals in there, it just depends on the batch, how fast things grew. So it's a mixture of, I would not call any of this small seed unless unless there's just a few in there, but most of them are fairly large seed to near legal size, and if not some legal.
What would the percentage of the be, would you say?
Oh, that's a Johnny question.
How much?
Johnny would have a better answer on that, yeah.
You
I
says
can ask him.
you guys dumped 30 bushels?
Yeah, that was just one run that we did in November. We did more in September, October.
How much do you think you propagated altogether? Like in,
Well, we bought,
like in pieces?
yeah, we bought, I think, 200,000 quahogs and planted them. And it must have been 200,000 oysters, seed oysters. We participate in the county and state funding initiative, so we get, about 200,000 oysters. Maybe it's like 140,000 oysters, and then we bought another 100. So we probably have planted close to 240,000 oysters this year. And then clams, I want to say it was 200, but it might have been one. I'll have to double check with Johnny.
That's what you guys did for the whole year?
That's what we grew on the grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we had all that donated seed from last year, which was probably, 400,000 to 500,000 oysters of seed that was donated, and all of that got put around the harbor. So there's at least, let's just say, 500,000 that have been broadcast between donations from grant holders and the seed that we bought. Let's say that was legal.
Do you guys grow that hat seed out in bags?
Yep, so we'll be beginning our overwintering, getting the hat seed, which was more than, I think we're thinking about 600,000 oysters were donated this year from different grant holders, and so that will be placed in our pits again. And it went really well last year.
Cool. Anybody else want to say anything? Shellfish department update. I guess we'll move on to discussion and vote on the Shellfish department fiscal year 2021 budget.
So the big ask that we are making as a department this year is something that I was conflicted about in the beginning, because I know that it's a big ask. Adding an extra, the ask is to add an extra person to the department. And I know that is then a position that stays. This isn't a new position, we're just creating a position, a second deputy constable position. I just, after a lot of thought and brainstorming in-house, we feel as a department that we need an extra body in order to meet the responsibilities that are on our plate. We have a whole set of regulations from the town, in addition to state and federal requirements, and these are increasing. I don't know if anybody had a minute to read the kind of additional, this additional budget request that I had to put together for the select board. But things have changed a lot, not just beginning with, Vibrio, which has been around for 6 years now, but a lot of those things are changing, and mostly for requiring more documentation to assist with tracebacks. So These are state things that are coming down that we learn about at the Mass Shellfish Officers Association's meetings.
So has
And-
that been made public for next year?
No, not yet. All we know is that there's going to be new stuff coming down. And one of the things that Chris Galacci talked to me about before he left was just documentation of each Vibrio inspection, and then, you know, that you need to do these Vibrio inspections more often. So we tend to concentrate our efforts on the wild fishery because we're one of the few places, I think the only place that has a wild fishery for oysters in the summer. So we tend to concentrate our efforts there, but because most oysters are sold through farms, and the only cases of Vibrio to date have come from farms, then, you know, that they would like us to increase our patrol of farms. Wellfleet has the most farms, almost double of any other town in the Commonwealth. Barnstable, I think, has 56, and we have 90. We have doubled the amount of acreage of any other town as well. So it's a lot of not only just the wild patrol, which we have to do north and south, but then all the grants as well. And so we felt that with the changes that we already have had to deal with, and what we know we could improve on as a department, it would be important for us to have a fourth person to help. As it was this year, for the 5 months that we had the Deputy Constable Drew, whose primary responsibilities were the rec fishery and assisting with propagation, but Saturdays he did commercial patrol. You know, I had no problem keeping him busy for his 40-hour work weeks all those 5 months. And, you know, I hated to see him go because we still had so many grant inspections to do. We still have one grant inspection to do, and it's it's almost the middle of December. We began in July. A lot of this really was kind of opened my eyes when we had all the overwintering conversations, and you know, we just took people at their word. And now with the new overwintering agreements, we need to go and inspect to make sure that people's racks are flush to the ground, and that what they say they're leaving, they are leaving, and then we need to go back and inspect. I think it's the right thing to do. But, you know, we can't even get through regular grant inspections in 6 months, so it's gonna take intensive resources to do that, and an extra body would help. We also get spread thin, 3 of us / 4 of us at low tide. You know, all the activities happen at low tide, so you're kind of competing for rec patrol, commercial patrol, propagation activities, and sometimes, you know, the grants are very high functioning, so you tend to put them at the bottom of the list. But as we went through some of our inspections this year, it became clear that there's things that we're missing. There's things that we really could improve on, and we should improve on because we're required to do them. So I guess, you know, I understand that people get concerned about a fourth position. I think this industry has shown incredible growth over the last 6 years. I think it's on the tune of 5 times. The industry has quintupled since 2012 when Vibrio began, and when Vibrio began, our responsibilities increased. So I think it's time that the department kept pace with the very high-functioning shellfish industry that we have, and you need a department that can match the growth of the industry and the expansion of the industry in terms of how much product is coming out of this small town. Again, we're #1 in the state for shellfish sales. So a department of 3 is tough. And other towns, you know, Chatham, I think they add on along the lines of 14 deputies in the summer. So Barnstable has already delegated one person for grant oversight. That's all she does. And I think that Wellfleet needs to kind of step up to the plate and allow us to do the job that's mandated of us with an extra person. There's only so much three of us can do.
Did Wellfleet quintuple, or did you talking the industry as a whole?
Actually, that quintupling is just oysters
In Wellfleet?
in Wellfleet,
Okay.
and just farmed oysters in Wellfleet. So they went from about less than $1 million in 2012.
So how much they,
Less than $1 million in 2012 to $5 million in value in 2018. We produced about 1.8 million oysters in 2012, farmed, this is all farmed, and more than 10 million oysters in 2018. So this is all really positive stuff. I mean, there's nothing to complain about here. We've added 5 new grants since then as well.
Would you have 4 people plus Drew in the summer?
No. Well, I did put in for a rec patrol, which would be a part-time. It would go back to what Drew's original position was, which is just
Part-time.
for the summer season, part-time. Yeah, not,
Okay.
So you would have 4 and a part-time?
and a part-time rec patrol person.
But not the same position that Drew was?
No. No, because Drew then became full-time. So this would be, that's not, like, that is in my budget already, so I don't have to change that. The addition of a full-time year-round is the change. So there'll actually be, because there'll actually be some savings from last year's budget, if you will, in terms of personnel, because I budgeted for Drew at 40 hours, and
How many months did Drew work?
he worked from like May 15th to October 31st.
6 months?
Yeah, it's a little less than 6 months.
So,
I'm trying to-
so the part-time person would go to 2, June, July, and August?
It would probably be, in a perfect world, it would be June through September when the rec fishery is Wednesdays and Sundays.
Okay. So you're basically in 10 months to a new person, because you got the other 2 months somewhere in the budget.
And then those days it's just 2 days a week?
No, we'd probably do, I want to say, I forget what I budgeted for, I'd have to look, and I can call it up. But I think that I did the exact same position that Drew had his first year, which also helped with propagation.
Oh, okay.
So I want to say it was like 20 or 30 hours a week helping, so first you do the rec patrol, and then you do, the other days you do propagation with Johnny. So 5 times 5, yeah, it might be like 25 hours a week. I can look it up if you want specifics, I just don't have every line item memorized.
So when Drew was in his role this year, you were okay? Or, I mean, he was like a full-time,
He was like a full-time,
Yeah.
but I had more stuff that he could do.
right?
Because we're still spread out. We still have North Patrol and South Patrol,
So he would,
propagation,
yeah, so he would just, in the previous role, he would just be the rec guy,
right. So
And then-
now this would free him up.
right?
Yeah, if we get a full-time hire, this person will be freed up to help with more commercial oversight and in specifics, as I, kind of create a job description and look at, how to divvy up some responsibilities. He could be in charge of grant, not he, but the new person that we hire would be in charge of, their main thing would be grants. But of course, you need a deputy for everything, because Johnny and Chris on the weekends are on by themselves, because we each have a 5-day work week. So with adding another full-time position, then you get 2 people on the weekends in the summer, which is like your busiest time.
Would you guys all continue to work the same amount of hours that you do now?
Of course. I'm hoping maybe I'll work a little less.
And then, so this person is pretty much for grants.
This person would be, their primary responsibility would be grant oversight, just starting right now, we wouldn't be able, this money wouldn't become available until the fiscal year, so July 1. But, in the future, in the spring, we would start grant inspections. And if we can make it happen this year, we can. But you also have your contaminated cohort relay, your coaching, like everything kind of happens, in May, June, July. So, but if we could start inspections in May, that would be awesome. Because that's when people are really getting up and running, and you can correct problems as soon as you see them.
What is in November? So I talked to you about this earlier, like in November, that's when pretty much like we're all sold up or not sold up, but like, things are slow, but that's like when all the grant stuff is out there, and you guys aren't propagating in November, right? Like that much? You guys did like 60 bushels or something like that, it says, or 30 bushels?
Yeah, for this month, I'd have to look at what last year was like.
So, could you guys, when there's the most gear in the water and not much going on for the department, could you guys do more grant inspections then?
So the problem because we had plenty of grant inspections that needed to be done in November this year, and the problem with November is that you lose light, so you don't have as much daylight to see when you're doing grant inspections. And this will change every year, but this year we had not very good tides. Certain grants you can't see unless it's more than a -1. And what we found is like a lot of grants have already taken stuff in. They don't have everything out there. I mean, people have already started to take racks in. Then their buoys don't have the writing on them, and they faded over the course of the summer.
Yeah.
So then you're like, all right, can you please pen those back on so I can check it off my list? I think the best time to do grant inspections is when people are getting out, and you can just correct problems as you see them in May, in June. At that point, your days are much longer. You're on to daylight savings time. So you get, you're already on double tides.
What about the winter months, like January, February, and March? A lot of times we're shut down. There's probably not a ton to do during those months. Are there certain things that you guys do to keep busy when there's a lot of ice, or do you just keep your...
Well, I think that's the point right there, is that there could be ice, and then you've got follow-up to ice. You've got inspections pre and post ice that you need to do, and then beach cleanups that you need to arrange.
That's sort of what I was wondering too, but that seems like after the ice has left. But like I know January and February, I mean, I barely even work those months. Like I don't have anything going on really. And I know a lot of us also don't have much going on. And
Well, that's why then he's a deputy, right? So if there's not enough going on in the grant world, there's always something that can be done, I'm sure. Either in the office, helping us get ready for town meeting. I don't think that we're gonna have a problem filling somebody's time.
Do you guys
patrol every day, you have boat patrol.
Do you patrol every area every day? Is that mandated? Like, it seems like some areas, you just kind of do like more random checks on wild guys than actually physically being there every day. Or I don't know. I'm just looking at it from the outside.
It's required of us to patrol.
Yeah.
We have to patrol in particular, even prohibited areas. That's like a state thing. Like, they want documentation that we've been to the Herring River, even though the Herring River is closed right now.
Every day?
Every day.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
But like the first day you don't go to Lieutenant Island South, and then somebody's like, oh yeah, I got, you're trying to document activity. Low tide is low tide, you got a lot going on, and now we used to, when I first started, I think we had maybe 2 or 3 boats that were regularly fishing, and now we probably have a good 8 boats that fish to some capacity, and a half dozen that are fishing a lot, daily or weekly. And, so that's more of a high tide activity. You have to wait for the tide to come in to be able to check. And then sometimes, you have, when you have double tides for 4 months in a row, when you're working double tides, your shift is usually about 5 hours
Yeah.
because you have to do the documentation, you have to get there early, you have to monitor exposure times. So now you're talking 10 hours of somebody's day, and I can't put in for overtime for all of that, So this would be a way too to cut down on some of the overtime and have, make sure that people are working what they're supposed to be working. Because now you have to cover the high tides because you have to be able to document boats.
Do you, I don't know, so this kind of like went back to like what I said at the last meeting too, like if like you see all this stuff happening, and like you said you didn't write like citations and stuff for this stuff. And,
Right.
And like, so do you think if you did write the violation, like if you did like write a ticket or something, do you think that maybe you would not need another employee because then it would just be easier to breeze through something that was already done? Do you know what I mean? Like people would be like, oh, like I'm getting a grant inspection, like I better have that already done there. Like I better have my polyball out.
Right.
Or I better, and that's sort of why I was like last meeting I said that, because
About overwintering, if I had
Well,
been issuing
every-
citations for overwintering.
pretty much everything, and that's why I was like,
Citation, sorry to interrupt.
well, like, if there's no like you're saying they're having a hard time doing this, but then there's no, there's nothing saying like, there's no like documentation saying like, I'm having a hard time doing this.
Do you
Oh, I put it together
document when
for
you do the
this.
verbal warning?
So, in order to write a citation, you have to do an incident report because you have to absolutely and completely document every interaction. Okay, I find this hard to do after grant inspections. I think it's necessary. I rarely get to do it. I'll do a grant inspection, there'll be something that's not quite right. I agree verbally with somebody, and I set a date or a time, a basic time, to come back and do a reinspection. But to be more professional, it would be only fair to that person and to us to have documented what was going on. And I just don't have time. We do document things in our daily patrol reports. So especially if there's something, like if I notice that so-and-so grant holder didn't have enough ice, that gets put in the patrol log. So I do have some of that, but I might want to follow up with that grant holder and say, I'm glad we had the discussion that we do. I'm confident that from now on you'll be bringing more ice. But then, the next time you're gonna, if it happens again, then you've got to be able to go back to that and say, look, I've already given you a verbal warning. Here's your citation. So it takes a lot of documentation to do citations because somebody can take that citation to the court, they have that right, and contest it, and then I have to be able to provide documentation to the court to demonstrate what happened. I can't say, oh, I gave the guy a verbal warning and then I just wrote him a ticket, and they're like, okay, bye.
So do you think with another employee that would make that easier to
I
get that
really think that
documentation?
documentation of what's going on grants is lacking, and that is a big responsibility that can happen at low tide.
And then you would end up writing more citations, or
Maybe you wouldn't have to, because maybe you're providing a written notice to somebody, which makes more of an impact than an agreement. For some people, receiving something in writing makes a bigger impact, so maybe you're not gonna have to get to the citation stage.
Well, that's like the first step to a
That
citation.
also helps
that's why.
when if you ever have to go to court, that you got a written warning.
Yeah. But there's a lot of, there's just, to me, for the way that I feel about my professional duties, I see that we could do better. And it also creates dialogue that is recognized, and, and I'm doing it with a few select, but it shouldn't be a few select. It should be the same across the board.
What were you gonna say, Helen?
I was going to say, there's this step between the court and what goes on out in the flats, and if it gets documented or not, which is what I'm more aware of, which is the select board meeting, where somebody has a pattern of abuse, in quotes, right? And if it's documented, and that paperwork, which Nancy is very good at, but it's a stretch, because it has to be meticulous, and it has to be every time. That comes into the select board when we have somebody appeal. And usually before it goes to courts, it gets appealed to the select board. And if they don't understand exactly what it is, they can't make decent decisions. And may I just put in my 2 cents as one person about this new position? I'm here to listen to you guys. I think we really need it. I think this is a very busy department, and I'm allergic to full-time positions for a lot of reasons. This one, I think, would really help it bring up to a level which functions much better for everybody, including yourselves. You know, so that there'd be fair, it wouldn't just be memory on the part of the constable and the department. You know, it would be somebody really on top of it.
Well, what would be, so the other thing I was gonna ask was, thanks, sorry. The other thing I was gonna ask was, what would be like the position of that person? Like what exact, like what would their, like what would your resume be? Like what would you be like looking for? Besides
Well, it would
just-
be great if there was somebody who had some prior experience. It would be great if, you know, it's like you need skills as hands-on as being able to build and fix things or innovate and create and solve problems like on the flats that we might, like on our grant that we might have or with our equipment. And then you need, so those are some skills that would be really valuable. And then skills like, you know how to use Microsoft Excel and you can run the grant spreadsheet that we have, you know, work ahead with Genie Max so that there aren't surprises like last week. And I want to make a note.
So you would be like looking for somebody who could use Excel and then also like fix like a wheel bearing on a trailer or.
Sure, I mean, we do have the DPW for that, right?
But you don't
And
like.
But yeah, somebody who's handy, like,
Put
you
a
know,
new
they
cleat
went
on
and
your
built,
boat so you could just get it done.
yeah, like we've been talking for a long time that we need a davit for our boat in order to haul up things and look at them. And so it would be great if I had somebody who was better than me at that. That's a great, you know, you need to put out there a lot of different things, and you hope that you're going to get somebody who has most, if not all. But yeah, it would be really great to have somebody who had both, you know, hands-on experience and administrative experience and some knowledge of shellfishing.
Like commercial, like fishing experience or commercial shelf, like aquaculture, I mean.
Sure, yeah.
Do you guys want to?
Well, I think you explained yourself very well, and I think you've laid out some very good reasonings to need the position. I wish more people are here to hear this because a lot of people in the community I talk to, you know, they're really interested in keeping the status quo, and I think a lot of people feel with the connection to the grant fee and being charged to leave the racks out over winter, it just seems like more, you know, more money, and now here's a new position that a lot of people feel isn't entirely necessary because everything's going, at least from our end, pretty smooth. And now all of a sudden, here's more money out of our pocket to pay for this position where a lot of people don't feel like it's completely necessary. And I just wanted to give you the chance to respond to that.
I think it's easy to, make assumptions about responsibilities that the department has.
Sure.
You know, I really hope that when you read through a monthly report,
Yeah.
you realize, like, I don't always put John, I put we a lot because I don't need to single out, like, Chris did this, Nancy did this, Johnny did this. Like, yeah, I'm the one who attends all the meetings, but, there's a lot that goes on, and it's time consuming, and I just see that we could do better. And it's my nature to want to do the best that I can, and I was hired, I went to the meeting at Preservation Hall upstairs in February of 2017, and what I heard loud and clear there was people wanted enforcement fairly and across the board. They wanted propagation, it had been languishing for too long, and they wanted communication. And these are my marching orders, and I'm gonna, you know, I have a 3-year appointment, and I'm gonna bite off every piece that I can to honor what I feel was a directive from the shellfishing community about this position. And, you know, also to respect this industry and its contributions to the town. It is the #1 year-round industry, and it employs 25% of our working age population.
I was gonna try.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, it sounds like you were familiar with what Chatham had going on down there. Have you done some kind of like spreadsheet for what the other towns are, what their shellfishing industry is, or what their acreage is that they need to patrol compared to what we do?
I did something last year for the finance committee and for the select board, which compared Barnstable, Chatham, I think Falmouth, and maybe Eastham. So I did
On the Cape,
one
okay.
neighboring town. Yeah, I did the Cape.
All right. What's
And
come up
I was not able to get miles of coastline. That I wasn't able to get what that was. But I did compare like sizes of the departments and
compared to how many permits were
compared to
sold,
how
for
many
instance?
grants. Yep. Let me see. I have that.
My point being is that I don't think we should be behind anybody. I think that we should be looking at that as a guideline. And I just don't, I don't think that we need to be twice as big a department as anybody else. But
Well,
I'd like to see
yeah.
I'd like to see us be at the same necessary level that other towns might find appropriate.
Just find that.
Like what Jake said too, I think it's really hard for me to, with so much pushback from the rest of the community, from what I've heard also, it's really hard to be like, I can see where you would need an employee, but listening to like my peers saying like, no, this is why we don't, but then listening to you say, everybody wants more oversight or more like, everybody's pointing fingers, but nobody wants more oversight, So it's really hard for me to be like, go ahead when everybody's saying no,
Yeah, but I wish they would come here so that we could hear them.
Do you
I mean, it's
guys,
gonna be one thing to watch it on TV later, but
yeah. Do you guys, does anybody in the audience have anything to like put in? Jason?
I just think about the propagation program and how that seems to have spread things out thin with patrol and the investment that goes into that. Because it wasn't what it was before. It took on what it's become. That's all, I guess, really is what
the propagation program,
just, if Johnny's mostly doing that, he's
Yeah.
not on patrol checking beef rice
definitely.
and what the propagation program does, I don't think there's any proven factors that it's, I mean, in theory, it's a great idea, but we're throwing oysters and clams into the ocean, and winter still comes in here and tears up nets and moves clams around, and that's a lot of money, a lot of time. So that's where I just don't see balance, I guess.
I guess I mean, first of all, if you decide to manage your shellfish resources with the state, I'm pretty sure you're required to have propagation. It is provided for in Mass General Law, and it has been done by the town going back like 100 years.
Oh, I'm not saying.
So I just don't feel comfortable saying like, oh yeah, what I did do is create a revolving fund for propagation, so that 75% of revenues collected from the Shellfish Fund, which are grant fees, shellfish permits, commercial rec, those go into a revolving fund now, and you will see my budget for propagation will be decreasing as those resources replace that. So, let's just say,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Now, the price of oysters is at the lowest it's been in I don't know how long, and the wild, license is going up, and there's a request for service fees and things, and that's all coming up. It's pretty tough already as it is. Housing prices keep going up. Try going grocery shopping locally, and there's nothing open now, and you gotta go pretty far, and gas prices are going up, and it's a pretty complicated situation. And when you talk about how am I gonna do this from your perspective, that's what I'm thinking too.
So that's what was, what I was gonna try to do was keep this like on the Nancy's person, you know what I mean, her new employee. But that's what's hard about this, is that it's all tied into each other. So it's like, it's really hard to see all these numbers and be like, how am I gonna come up with this? And then get you have the part of the community that's like, why isn't the shellfish community they get all this grant stuff and all of this, and they can't they can't spend any money. And now Nancy wants a new employee, and we don't want to pay into this, and you're like, why does the shellfish department have to be self-sustaining? And then it comes here, and we all have to recommend to the select board what we think, when I think every single person here probably has like a little bit of a different opinion, but can see all the nuances that Jason can see too, and is like, I don't know,
Is there a way to make it like a certain time period? Like you said that you'll have to renew after 3 years. So is there a way to say, we're going to do this for a certain number of years and we're going to reevaluate? Let's see if this is working. Maybe the propagation thing isn't going to work out for us. Maybe it is just throwing it out under the ice, and we're going to decide we don't want to do that. And at that time, maybe we want to reevaluate how many employees we have and how they're delegated.
I don't know about that. I'd have to ask, because it's a union position, so I don't really know about, it's
3 years in and out.
yeah, I don't know how that works. That would mean I'd need to do a little research into the possibility of.
Helen?
Yeah, it's a question. What kind of salary are we talking about? What kind of tax I could be talking about? Not everybody has property, so their taxes would go up. The landlord's taxes would go up. I mean, what are we talking about for salary?
I put it in at 49,914.
Okay, now, there's a thing where even if you have everybody working very hard in the department, if they can't get everything they're supposed to do, no matter how scrupulous they are, the things that they get to can't be done as well often. And that really concerns me, because it compromises the work of the people who have too much on their plate. And you guys all know about enforcement. I don't have those issues, so you realize I'm never going to be enforced on for my shellfishing grant or my fishing, right? So I'm clean of that. But I really think that the most important thing is consistent and fair. And consistent and fair means somebody gets, there's something you inspect, there's something you think should be corrected. You have to go back a second time. You know, if you just give somebody a citation, it's not fair. And that second time makes so much more work. And yet, it's the way to make it happen in a better way for everybody that's out there that's getting inspected. You said something frightening just now. You said we started the inspections in July and we're still doing them. Why?
So, you all set? So that's part of why this is really a hard thing. So now, the Shellfish department wants a new employee, and then the next thing on this agenda is Shellfish permit increase and then initiate a grant service fee. So like, they're gonna get a new employee, and then, so now everybody in the community is gonna have to cough up for a new employee, and then we're gonna have to cough up for some kind of service fee, and then we're gonna have to cough up again for a wild permit fee. So, that's all I'm saying, so.
Well, all right, so, and I agree, and there's other things like the last item on our agenda tonight, which is a report that's gonna end up costing a bunch of money too, to put that together, sort of along the same lines. Everybody wants something, you know, and my question is, first of all, what's been the history of the Shellfish department increasing staff? When was the last hire you did that was a new hire, new position?
I don't know, along.
Not in your
like,
tenure?
It's been Johnny and Chris. Johnny's been with the department for, I think, 15 years, so at least for 15 years. But things have started to change from state regulations since at least 2012 with Vibrio.
So you haven't expanded since 2012, or even before?
We haven't expanded since, well, for the last 15 years at least, because that's how long Johnny's been with the department and Chris has been with the department for 20.
I think the point is, that you said in 2012, we did 1.8 million oysters or something like that. And in 2018, we did 10. So the activity has increased. The grants have grown twofold, threefold, fourfold. So instead of inspecting in 2012 a grant that had 10 racks, now the grant has 30 racks. So it's going to take a lot longer. And to listen to the last 2 or 3 meetings on enforcement, I mean, there was some vocal people out there that said we weren't doing enough. And that was evident. So I think, personally, I think it might be the right thing to bring somebody on. Maybe it's part-time, just to understand whether or not we can keep the individual busy for the January, February, March months, or whatever. But if we can't enforce the rules or recs that we talk about, then I think we're going to find ourselves in some hot water eventually. You do a citation, somebody challenges you. I know there's a ton of work in there. And I don't know, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here. If I'm a grant holder, the last thing I want is somebody looking over my shoulder. All right? So we just got to be careful with that. Because if the state comes down with more Vibrio inspection ideas, where's that going to lead us? Then will the state say, well, if you can't inspect, I mean, could they say stop growing? And then we're really in a jam. Wait a minute. You can't inspect what you have today because you're not hiring anybody? Jake, you can't add any more racks. I mean, could that happen?
I don't think so.
All
I
right.
don't know. Well, can I just back up for 1 second? I put together my budget in the beginning of November for the town administrator, and I'm bringing it here for you guys to look at. Then I get an email from the town executive secretary saying, January 7th, the select board is going to review all fees. So I put out to you guys, last year there had been a vote to increase the fee, and then it decided not to increase the fee. But you have a right to suggest to the select board whether to or not to increase fees here. The last fee increase was in 2009. So you have, I think it was in 2009, but then I remember maybe last year, maybe it had gone up, I don't. Anyway, it's your prerogative whether you feel that shellfish fees should change. I also brought information about what other towns charge, if we want to go down that route. And then with the grant service fee, this is something that was brought up in this room, I think, either last year or when we were going through the overwintering stuff.
This was what brought up during the overwintering stuff.
A grant service fee.
But I think it was, you were the one that had brought that up as a
But I
way
think
to.
because it had been brought up last year at some point during Shellfish Advisory Board, people had talked about it, and I said I would do some research into it. Now, we cannot change what Mass General Law specifies, and Mass General Law says towns can collect a minimum of $5 and a maximum of $25 an acre. So if you have, 3 acres, you pay $75 a year.
Right.
If you have 2 people named, you pay $150 a year. And that's it for your business operation. So that's why then that grant service fee, we cannot add to Mass General Law.
Right, but, so this is, now we're talking about the service
Yeah.
fee though,
Yeah.
and it's like all connected.
It is, you're right.
And it's like really hard to not connect it, you know what I mean? And it's that original thing that was made up for the original talk about the service fee was when I first got on about overwintering, and that was when the cost like $5 for a rack left out or something. That's what this was supposed to address. And so I don't know. Anyway, what do you?
So after we vote on it, then it goes to the selectmen?
Yeah, I mean, I have to present to the Finance Committee still. This
And
is a
then-
long road.
And then it goes in front of the town,
And then
Eventually.
it'll go for a town meeting.
town meeting vote?
No, please don't go.
No.
No, I'm
these
talking
are
about the
first.
position.
Position. That's
This-
why I wanted to stay on the agenda of the budget, not the
Sorry.
service fee. So, I don't know, does anybody in the audience have anything else to add to this, or what do you guys wanna do?
To just go.
Somebody should make a motion
For what?
to say whether or not we want to authorize Nancy, we're talking about adding a new position. That's what we're at, that's what you're
Discussion
at.
for another month.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you have you can reserve
You can
until
push it a little
town
bit.
meeting. I know, nobody likes that, but,
I would rather that, so then I would prefer that. I don't really wanna make a decision right now.
I'd like to get
Maybe
some
if we get
feedback
more-
from other people.
Yeah, get more people to show up
That would be a
and have an
good thing.
opinion.
And I went to a lot of the FinCom meetings last year, and I typically go to them when there's something about shellfish.
What did they say?
You've got Bobby Wallace on.
What did they say about this?
Well, they haven't, I think, had that meeting yet. But one of the reasons, yeah, sure, wait, whatever you want, it's not me. But it's really good for these groups to hear from you about this kind of thing, and not just do it attend. And believe me, they're going to be taking it apart and looking at it, and Bob will know about it, but Bob's just one person who fishes.
Well,
So I'm just putting that out.
yeah, well, I think that's why maybe we should table it. So, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this, but have you guys talked to like a lot of people?
Not a lot.
Just a few.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot, and I think it would be good if you guys could talk to more people about it.
I have a question about the amount of money that's allotted for this position. I'm a little out of touch. Is that a reasonable amount of money for someone to be able to afford to live here?
that's what I was advised, yeah.
Okay, because I want to
That
make sure
this
that
is kind of
if we
what
do end up creating a job, that it's an equitable job that people can afford to live here on.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of in the middle of the road of the steps on the,
That was the other thing I was gonna say too, I don't know if you're allowed to do this, like if it would be biased, but if you could keep that job in Wellfleet too.
I don't think you're allowed to do that, but.
You can't, you have to put it out to
No,
the
but
general
it's-
public.
It's desirable, so select board or, town meeting looks at it. There's a whole list of stuff.
Because I think it would be important for someone to know, like how Johnny knows every single one of us. Everybody in the department's from Wellfleet and knows about shellfishing. And knows about also the relationships that we all have between each other, because there's only 2,500 people in this town. If if there's, you might bring somebody here that doesn't know about how things actually
The
work.
Wellfleet way?
If somebody's gonna do the hiring, and that's up to the person that does it.
Yeah.
Respectful, so
I mean, yeah, I think if somebody from out of town coming into town, they have a place to live. But it's more attractive if it's in-house, if it's someone who's from Wellfleet, lives in Wellfleet. I mean, it's
That's all
part of the
considered,
struggle as it is to have your own grant here for that. So why would we both from somebody from the outside?
That's what I'm saying.
On the other hand, if they're gonna be regulating us, maybe they shouldn't live in town.
respectfully, I disagree with that. I think what you need is someone who's smart, who's fair, who has the skills the Shellfish Department needs, who's a quick study, who's not going to give one person preference because they know a little more about them or their backstory, but who's going to be decent and across the board fair. And, Andrew learned quickly. I'm much more interested in that. And I've also seen hires, sure, it's better if they live here or in Easton or Truro, sure. But people who are open to other people, who aren't, who are good people learn very quickly who the pointers are. And if this is a full-time position, that person is going to be there. They're not just going to, leave like an American
Right.
person.
I get it. I think what I'm talking about, well, I get what you're
That-
saying.
that-
But
yeah.
I think what I'm not, yeah. I think what I'm talking about is more about the way, I think everybody who's a shellfisher in Wellfleet knows what I'm talking about, is the way that we do things here it doesn't.
well, there's
Jason.
also the likelihood
They'll
that
be
there's
educated by the Shellfish Department.
Yeah.
there's people that have moved out of town that would likely be perfect candidates for it, and they don't live here anymore because they can't afford to. So maybe they would come back if they got a good salary, and they'd be a great addition.
To hire someone with a salary that can afford to live here is not, it goes against what you're saying.
It depends. People, I remember I was on the housing authority, I've still got my nose in that. Yeah, it is more expensive, but it's doable, and I've seen a number of new hires come into town, particularly with administration, where they find a place to live, it's not good. But $40,000 is a decent salary for a lot of their hard work. I have to say that I've had people look in my face and say, well, that's not the way we do it in Wellfleet. These are people who fish. And what they're talking about is being cut a huge amount of slack for non-compliance. And then I've had people say, we look out for each other and we take care of each other. And if somebody has a stroke or something, we go and help them out. And that's also the Wellfleet way. So that's a kind of difficult phrase for me because it can mean any number of things. Okay? So familiarity is good. And humanity is good. But compliance and credibility with these 3 state agencies that breathe down our necks because we're producing food here is really important. And we have way more credibility than we did, say, 10 years ago. And that's really important, in my opinion. Thank you for letting me talk.
All right.
I'll just make a motion that we table this to the next meeting.
I have one short question,
Yes.
stupid question. I assume that with the revolving fund, that can't pay for salary,
The revolving fund can't pay for the salary.
for propagation.
It might someday be able to pay part of Johnny's salary because he's dedicated to propagation and it's part of his job description. Other towns do that.
Okay.
But right now, it's going to be pretty puny for a while because it's not like we're going to let it build up. We're going to use it immediately. But there is a chance one day, depending on how things go.
Want to make your motion?
Yeah, well, I'll make the motion to table this to the next meeting, and I'd like to just suggest that let's have some hard facts about, what exactly the numbers are compared to every other shellfish department on the Cape, and, document how long it's been since we've hired somebody, and it's, how much we've grown since the last 10 years is probably appropriate, to make a little bit of a more complete case.
Some examples why.
So that's my motion, to table till the next meeting and get some facts and get some outreach. Let's make a big deal out of the next meeting that we discuss this. So let's try to get some people in the room to see how they feel about it. Because it sounds like what I'm hearing from the people who are on the flats all the time is that they think it's a good idea to get some more enforcement. And if you want more enforcement, it usually means more people. So I think it's
Yeah, I was
worthy of
expecting
more
more
debate.
people.
I'm not sure I can make my mind up quite yet.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion. All in favor? Aye. All right. Now, so I kind of want to talk about this stuff quick so we can get to the last stuff. Because I feel like the stuff that we're talking about always takes precedent over like the environment where we actually grow the food. And we never get to that ever. So, so I guess now we'll talk about the discussion and vote on shellfish permit fee increase. Helen?
So, in the past, this is a direct impact in very clear terms on your finances. What do you think about it? You all, or most of you, have you all submitted disclosures? Okay. Oh, dynamite.
Yeah.
However, this is before the select board's not going to look at it tomorrow. What's on our agenda?
They are gonna look at
Yeah,
it
we
tomorrow,
are
but they
gonna
did
look
get
at it.
permission
Yeah.
to discuss it tonight from administration.
Okay, well, technically, just so you know, we are supposed to give you dispensation to discuss it and say, we've gotten your disclosures, we think you can do a good job for the town, talking about these fees, even though it directly affects your finances, and then you're good to go and you get to make a recommendation. And John is the only person, I think, who was on the board already the last time we did this. But I'm going to say, when you deal with your disclosures is, you give disclosures on a particular matter, okay? So we can't say, oh, you go guys, just talk about everything to do with shellfish and you're good. We can't do that. The particular matter is fees. Even if you guys said, don't do anything, you'd still be discussing it. So, what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to say, I think that we should, having received all these disclosures, we should have a blanket permission into the future, so every time fees comes up, we're covered. The only exception would be if a new person came on to SAB, they would have to do the disclosure before fees came up. I don't know how clear that is. I know it's
Right.
a board.
No, that's fine.
But the thing is that part of me wishes that the way you deal with it would be to have a meeting before the January 7th meeting. This group and do it then. Because-
To talk about this subject then?
Yes, and to go over it again. I'm just, you guys do what you want, but you've submitted your disclosures. I can't see that the select board can say, great, thing, yes, you can act on this. And then at your next meeting, you would discuss it fully.
Okay.
And then it would be kosher.
All right.
And the select board wouldn't vote on it tomorrow night.
Okay.
Wasn't that included at the bottom? That kind of permission on that form itself?
Yeah, but you haven't gotten it yet because the select board hasn't met on it yet. We're meeting on it tomorrow. It's
okay.
a mini technicality.
Right.
So I'm laying it out so you all understand it.
So can we talk about this now?
Well, that's your decision. You can say-
think so.
Description of commission?
Everything's a conflict of interest.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
everything
think-
that we do,
No, no,
because
no,
we're
no,
all
no.
shellfishermen on a
Sure.
shellfish board.
No, it isn't everything. This is direct impact on the finances. I'm looking at John because we've been through this before, right? And when we went through it before, only 2 people on the Shellfish Committee didn't have any common permit, didn't fish.
All right.
It was me and Barbara Benson, she stopped doing it as well.
All right, well, I think I'd like to just maybe talk about it and get through it so that we can talk about the rest of it then.
But then, if you do a recommendation, you haven't gotten permission from the select board to add that. If you guys feel like doing it,
Wait.
But they got permission from the administration to,
I think we.
he's not there.
So you're saying we can talk about it, but we can't make a recommendation?
No, I'm saying you shouldn't act on it at all, in my opinion. But I'm just me. I'm not here as a delegate of the select board. I'm just me, who's by the way, I've been through the process before. So it's so crazy. because-
So if I talk about it and then the select board's like, if we talk about it, the select board's like, oh, wait, no, then it's like just all a bunch of
No,
crap.
no, but it's not all a bunch of crap at all. Whatever you guys talk about, it will not be a bunch of crap. If the select board meeting is tonight, your meeting is tomorrow night, it will be totally kosher.
But it's not.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, what I would do, Chair Stigler, is to look at your agenda and look at the part where you decide when your next meeting is. And pin down your next meeting right now and just consider whether or not you can do it before the January 7th select board meeting. You might not be able to.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because we were gonna talk about the shellfish management plan. I'm just gonna make a motion to not raise the service fee, or not raise the permit fee.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
We wouldn't have anything.
All right.
Okay, well, so that's good. So how many of you voted for it?
I didn't vote.
We skip.
I'll make another motion
I
then
mean,
to.
we've discussed this every year.
So this-
We've decided that it needs
Yeah,
to be retained.
This was
never
for
raised
the
fees.
shellfish
I got a
permit fee?
question, how much is it gonna cost to come up with $49,000?
Well, I think that the last time we discussed this, we decided that we would wait to raise the fees until their propagation was underway and there was a reason to raise the fees. And it sounds like that really hasn't kicked in yet.
Well,
So-
if we were gonna raise the fees, would that help defray the cost of Nancy's employee?
But nobody's going to buy licenses if there's no propagation done to buy licenses to do stuff. So there's no point in raising it.
There's trade-offs.
So, I mean, that was the discussion last year and that's going to be pretty much
I remember
continuation.
that too, that waiting for
we're
propagation.
waiting for propagation, absolutely.
Yeah,
And propagation was good, right?
yeah, I mean, we've got 2 years under our belts now, 2018 and 2019. So any of the clams that we bought are not gonna be ready until maybe next year, we're hoping, because we're not growing things to market size. So we just want them to be predator resistant, and, you know, the more that we can disperse them around the harbor and have them spawn, then we can be creating new shellfish beds. We'll do the quahog relay again.
Is there a motion to?
I was
There was a
gonna.
motion on the table.
I made a motion.
Yeah, we're discussing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we should
I made a motion
to make it
to,
again.
not increase the shellfish permit fees.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? All right, Wayne's just gotta give me a packet real quick. You just put it on there. Thank you. So that was easy. Now we have talk on initiating a grant service fee.
All right. So I'm just gonna, we talked about the growth of the industry. I thought maybe what I could do is outline some of the things that I felt. So let me just go down to the dollars and cents for a minute. Okay, we have about 235 acres under cultivation in Wellfleet Harbor. At each leaseholder, each person named to a lease has to pay $25 an acre for every acre that's leased to them. That brings in, that brings in $12,000 in revenue to the town, which seems kind of small. We sell $45,000 a year in recreational permits and $42,000 this year in 2019 in commercial permits. As I look at, and this is where it does get intertwined, I agree, Dave, with a person, but there's no way that we can say that this grant service fee is going to fund the new position, because this grant service fee goes into the Shellfish Fund. 75% of the revenues in the Shellfish Fund go to propagation, the revolving fund for propagation. 25%, the select board has the power to put into the general fund for whatever they want. Perhaps 25% will go to fund the Shellfish position job. But they act on those receipts. So, as I look at things that I don't feel that we are doing as good as we could on, you know, a lot of this reflection started when we had those overwintering discussions. And I think that, you know, we need to be more detailed in our grant visits. When I did a poll of people, of grant holders, 12,000 racks are in the harbor at peak production time. So that means we have to inspect 12,000 tags. Oftentimes, there's 6 bags on a rack. So that's 72,000 bags that we need to inspect. And we got our marching orders this year. I mean, I went back to some grants 3 times to make sure that every bag was tagged. Now we have overwintering contracts, which define racks pushed in flush with the ground, and we're gonna have to go look at those. If you have clam nets, how many? If you have cages on the bottom, how many? And we need to go inspect them. After the ice, we're gonna go look. Well, how do your clam nets look? How do your racks look? What did you lose? You're gonna give a report of what you lost. We're gonna go and check. This is a lot of time, and I feel like some sort of fee to compensate the town more than the $12,000 that it takes in grant fees is appropriate to ask. It has nothing to do with a wild shellfishing permit. If somebody opts to get a wild shellfishing permit because they want to collect spat in Chipman's Cove, or they want to go out and pick in the wild, we're providing that opportunity as a town, and we try and do propagation to ensure that your activities are successful and that you make money. $12,000 from grants doesn't approach that, and people are running good businesses, and we should be proud of that. Some of the things that I know that could use more oversight is we're very good on exposure times for wild harvest. We are out there and checking the wild harvest areas every day. Do we get out to Indian Neck every day or around to Field Point as part of our normal patrol? Not every day, or maybe every day, but not in time to see the tide recede. And what about Egg Island? It's hard to get out there, but we should be walking around. I love walking around Egg Island. The Picards will tell you I get out there as often as I can. But I need to know, like I know, when Blackfish is going to recede, when Egg Island is going to recede. And it's not just, it's a real Vibrio concern, because as I said, most oysters in this town are, and most oysters that go into commerce are from farms, and most Vibrio cases come from farmed oysters. So we have to be on top of it. And when we have oysters go into market, and we don't really know the exposure time of those grants, like we do, like the back of our hand for the wild fishery, it's out of balance. Now, we can pull people off of wild patrol and say we're just not gonna do a wild patrol. I just don't feel comfortable. We can do it, we can rob Peter to pay Paul and just put somebody and dedicate one of our 3 people to grants, but it's a tough call to make when you have North Wellfleet, South Wellfleet, and 90 working grants.
How many Vibrio cases were there in Wellfleet this year?
There was one that was what we call a single source, so it was able to be traced back absolutely to Wellfleet. And there were 2 multiple source where Wellfleet was one of a variety of oysters on a plate, and so it wasn't able to be traced back necessarily to one. And this is where the state is now saying, in order to track, they're going to be putting more documentation on municipal shellfish departments.
Because that sounds like we're doing an awesome job.
You're doing an
And
awesome
don't
job.
need that much more oversight because we're already doing it. And it's a lot easier if you're not picking in the wild to be prepared with your ice and do all of that. So they ought to be fairly easy to do, and we as a population are already doing it pretty well.
I would agree that most people are doing it well. I would also say that I see infractions on grants. Even, I see people that don't have enough ice, or that messed up their exposure time and I happen to know it. I mean, it can happen everywhere. I'm not trying to paint like a picture of fear, absolutely not. I think this is a really well-functioning industry, and the Vibrio proves it. That said, I see that we could be doing a better job, and I believe that the state is going to soon be requiring us to do a better job.
You were gonna say something?
I had a question, I'm not making the connection, so how is a grant service fee gonna help with these things? Is this for hiring a new?
It's just because if you look at the Shellfish Department budget, if you just compare the fees that come into the town and the fees that are expended by the town on shellfish, it's out of kilter. It's out of balance.
But in terms of what you're bringing up now, in terms of making more enforcement or inspection, it's...
No, that would only happen with a new employee, for example.
Right.
So it is intertwined, but I'm trying to, I'm also trying to just elevate out where the Shellfish Department budget, and there's a very small percentage of that comes from grants, which actually require or would require a greater percentage of our time if we were doing things
So
better.
that's sort of why I'm like, the service fee and then the extra person, it's like a redundant, you need money for the same thing. And that's why, that's why I was saying, like...
But I don't pay an extra fee to the police
And
because I live in a town, that's in my taxes. So why am I paying an extra fee because I have a business to be regulated by the organization who regulates me? Shouldn't that be coming from somebody else?
I agree with you there too. I mean, I'm going to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't think that the shellfish industry needs to be self-supporting, or the shellfish department needs to be self-sustaining. You're absolutely right. I do feel that the amount of money that comes into the town for the amount of productivity in this, I think it could merit a larger contribution.
I'll get right to you, Steve. This is what I was saying about what Becca's saying. It's like when Comcast or your car insurance is like, here's like your service fee, and you're like, dude, I just paid you $300 for my wild permit. I just paid you $75 for one grant. I paid you another $25 for this other grant, and then I paid another $500 for my state fees, and then I also need to buy my seed and all my gear, and then and then where does it stop? Where does that service fee, like can you raise that anytime that you're like, I need I can't do this, or I need this, and it sets like a precedent, and then maybe that like how we talked, that 10-year set like a gap for it, but also like how could an extra employee just nix the service fee? So then we don't have to keep paying up. And then, like I said before, like it's the same problems with the service fee that you get with the extra employee. You get people who aren't in the shellfish industry being like, oh, these people don't, look at what they get, and they can make all this money, and all they have to do is pay $25 per acre. So like, but then they don't see the other charges that we spend, and like, when would this fee come into place? Like, would it be at the end of the year or in July?
Not until, I don't know, because I'm not the select board, but I would imagine July 1, which is when the new fiscal year starts.
Then we wouldn't have to pay it at the end of the year.
So you pay it in July.
Do you have an idea how much the fee would be?
So I was thinking of, $100 an acre, but by farm, not by license holder. But I just, I would listen to any ideas.
My thought on that is, that isn't that kind of a way to get around what the maximum is you're allowed to charge $25 per acre? I mean, it seems like you figured out a way to skirt the law, is what you're doing.
I don't think it's skirting the law. It's a way to get, it's a way to get a fee out of us.
So the thing is that other towns have done this. So there's two things that have gone on. Mattapoisett and Fairhaven did a home rule petition and got the state to allow them to charge $200 an acre. So they got dispensation from the legislature to do that. And there is some talk that this might happen as part of the Massachusetts Shellfish Initiative process, because it's something that all the towns, as aquaculture has grown and the responsibilities of shellfish departments have increased, the revenue from those aquaculture grants has not increased.
I feel like they're trying to get money out of us every which way they can, because this is just a growing industry, and everybody's just trying to like milk me for like what I got. You
What
know?
better services are we gonna get for paying more money? Because we don't own the land, we're allowed to rent the land, and we're allowed to set up shop on the land. But I can't restrict people from boating over it, and I can't restrict people from walking on it,
And you can't
or
get
harvesting horseshoe crabs on it, or anything else they wanna do. So why am I gonna pay more money and not get any more rights to the stuff that I'm already using?
This was just, for me, it was a way of having a bigger contribution. It was. It's a bigger contribution on the part of the grant holders. Dennis did it, and I think Eastham did it with $100. They were calling it a special permit fee. I shouldn't have called it a service fee. It was a special permit fee or an operations fee, something like
It kind of
that.
made more sense when we were talking about with the overwintering contract. If you were leaving a certain number of racks, you paid a certain amount of money
Yeah.
to ensure the cleanup of those if they got lost. But having it going to these other kind of
Well, in this
less
case,
specific.
it's 75% the propagation.
And then
I mean,
25 to
but I don't leave racks out, so then why am I paying a fee other than, we all pay for schools because we want people to learn. And I want the harbor not to have debris in it, so I have to pay, but
So the only thing that, again, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and everybody is not in favor of it, but I have heard one person be like, so the grant people, I have a grant and somebody comes on my grant and say they're stealing shellfish, or they're doing something, or they're doing something, and I'm like, get off my grant, and then they don't get off my grant, and then I have to call the shellfish department.
And
So-
we got called this year.
So now I'm using your time up, which could be used at another, you could be doing something else. So,
well, you could
I mean,
also
we
call
do that.
911 and say these people are stealing from me.
Yeah,
Or-
we deal
or-
with that.
well,
I'm not gonna say
whatever,
all the
you know what I
time, but
mean?
it happens.
but you could, so does that tie into, what you're trying to say is that like a grant person should pay for the department's time? But
So-
how are we paying, and then that same application, could an aquaculturist buy a commercial permit? Because that does the same thing, But then you were saying that aquaculturists might pay more than what their acreage is, but that's only an arbitrary point of making it per acre.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the reason that I brought this up is because the fees that the town collects for the operation of this business is pretty small. For a large and growing industry, I felt it would be appropriate to request some further contribution to the town for the oversight that the department provides. okay? With or without an extra person, we still have a lot of responsibilities. I think I calculated like 1/8 of my time, and we just did a very rudimentary, but starting January 1, we'll probably start logging all of the time that we spend on grants, just to understand better how much of our time is taken up. But I'm open, it was an open conversation to hear, you know, is there a way for you? It was brought up on the floor, even if I remember correctly. Yeah, I don't agree that the shellfish department, I don't feel needs to be self-sustaining. I don't feel like the shellfish industry needs to absolutely sustain the Wellfleet Shellfish Department. But I do feel like a bigger contribution than $25 an acre is appropriate, given the success of our industry. So I'm open to ideas of how you might be able to, you know, give a little revenue to the town
So
to help its operations.
I'm just gonna kind of want to. We're taking up a lot of time, but I'm gonna. Stephen and then Jason and Alfred they all three had their hands up.
Okay.
But like what Becca said also, if you could specifically say like what that money was going to be used for, like cleanup or something like that. But
Yeah, I mean, that's, I can say what some activities, like I was reading off some of the activities, but with or without a new employee, it's just an idea for generating a little bit more revenue from the shellfishing industry. And we don't have to do it, it's you can make the advisory, the advice, give the advice to selectmen, but I just thought it would be appropriate to bring it up for discussion.
Stephen?
I have a question for Nancy. How many named leaseholding people are all on these leases? How many of them hold a commercial shellfish license? Because this is something that's bothered me since back in the 90s when they took it off, where the leaseholder did not have to hold a shellfish license in Wellfleet. Okay, that's my big question.
Okay, so we have 134 leaseholders, and I would have to go, we sold 160,
134 leases, right?
134 leaseholders,
So now there's some have more than one name on it.
that's right.
There's 134 of them.
134 total,
Names.
yep.
And how many of them hold a license?
That I'd have to go and cross-check, I don't know, but a fair amount of people, because A, if you want to collect spat in Chipman's Cove, you have to have a wild fishing permit with the town. And B, some people who really take everything in, make their livings in the winter by picking in the wild.
Just wondering if there's revenue that the town's losing because there's people that are opting out of being a wild fisherman. Because they have the right to do that. They can have a lease.
And they don't have to opt into the wild fishery.
So what, do we know
That's the
why,
amount of money that the town's losing too. I mean, that's gone on for a long period of time.
do we know why that rule has changed? You guys were,
My understanding was that the reason that you had, I thought that if you had a grant, you were not allowed to have a wild shellfishing permit because of the petite rule.
Right.
And then that went away,
oh yeah.
and then that
there
went
was a
away,
license,
but,
you weren't allowed to have a
Yeah,
commercial
I know.
license.
and then maybe then nobody got them again because they don't really need them because they're not gonna go work in the wild.
So the town is losing revenue in that, when they used to pull that in.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, Jason?
I was just thinking about, a good resource of income is a lot of people that are getting recreational permits that are coming from outside the town. And propagation that's taken on just might be some way to earn some more money, you know? There's a lot to maintain that recreational licensing, but there's really does draw a lot from the industry itself.
So you're saying like use propagation as a way to create revenue for the department? Through recreational
I'm just
fishing.
thinking more, what the recreational permitting does, is it just let people go out there and then they're being launched, or are they being informed of the propagation that's taking place,
Like
They-
put the service fee on the recreational people.
Yeah, basically.
I like that better.
Our rec permit fees are pretty high compared to other towns.
How much is that?
Our rec out-of-towner is 210. I think the closest
Yeah.
comparison is $100
One tire can you go
for
there?
one person. Not, we don't do families, we only
That's
do
all-
individuals
That is pretty
here.
high. Can I call it, do you mind if I go on Alfred? What were you gonna say?
I had two questions. Steven got one of them. So I mean, the question is, if we get 10 or 15% of the people who have grants who don't have licenses, you know, that's,
I would say more like 10 or 15% have licenses.
no,
Is
don't
that-
have.
I would say 10 or 15% have license. Wait.
I don't know, I understand, look that up if you would, please, okay? The next question is, you know, we seem to talk about enforcement with Vibrio, and the only place we've had a Vibrio problem is through grants. I don't understand why the town doesn't get ahead of it, and just mandate that all grants have to have ice on them, period.
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 Because we can't go more strict than state rules, and state rules don't require it.
No, we can go under the Board of Health, I believe. It may not be a shellfish regulation, but we should look at it from a Board of Health situation. And to make a few people take ice to make sure that we have zero, because we're doing a great job, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But to get it down to zero, I mean.
I talked to Chris Scalacci about this, and I
he's
just
no longer-
misspoke. I just
he's no longer
misspoke.
there.
Hold on 1 second. So I just misspoke because towns are allowed to be more restrictive, but not more
Yeah,
lenient.
that's what I
So I
was
just
saying.
want to correct myself. And then I talked to Chris Scalacci, and he was beside himself that there is absolutely no reason for the town to go above and beyond what the state requires.
Well, maybe it is if we can get to zero. That's,
We were at 0 last year.
well, we did.
We did have 0 occurrences last year.
So I mean, that would be a huge thing I think we should look at. And I really go back to shellfish. People who have a shellfish grant should contribute more than we do. I think for the licensing, you know, the amount of grant space we have, the size of our family, I mean, we're probably paying double than a lot of people out in the area because of the fact that everybody has a shellfish license. And some of us never go on water. You know, I use it as a tax, use it as you want. But you know, when we call for help from the shellfish department, we shouldn't be paying for that. I mean, we're not now, so I look at the user fee sometimes. And when the problem in the neighborhood, we call the police department, they don't show up and say, you gotta use the user's fee to get one. You know, that's kind of where this is going. I agree that we're not paying very much for shellfish.
So this was a way to try and,
I
the amount of time that the department spends, have that be relative to, you know, what is being brought in. But it, you know, it was an idea, and, you know, other towns have been doing it. We could do a home rule petition, or we could just wait to see what happens with the MGL, the Mass General Law.
How many other towns do you have to drive to the next town for fuel in a vehicle?
I don't know.
I don't think any of them do. It's time well to at least walk gas in their own town, so we don't pay these guys. And you drive all the way to East Town.
We have a contract with
It's
these towns.
gasoline, we have it at the mobile station, we still drive to East Town to get it.
Well, anyway, back,
Time by the hour. I mean,
well,
So, you know, I am totally fine to have this be a continuing discussions. I would look forward to people's ideas. It had been brought up, as I remember, last year, and I just thought, well, let's have a conversation. I'm giving you my thoughts, but it's up for discussion.
I sort of like the idea of having an aquaculturist buy a commercial permit, because it goes into the propagation fund, and the only thing that I can see, I have a farm too, but I also am a wild guy too. So the only thing I can see, say if I just had a farm, I'd be like, well, why do I have to pay for propagation? Because my oysters are propagating.
Tell me
and
why
like,
I need to pay
should
for
I?
propagation. When I go
Because-
fish in the
because
wild and
she's
they're my
so-
competition.
Well, what
Exactly.
if I buy triploids? Then I really shouldn't have to pay for propagation.
So, but then again, an aquaculture is also using the department's time so maybe some of that fee, well, you are, because you're signing an overwintering agreement, or you're not, but Jake is, or I am, you know, so the grants are using the department's time. Maybe you specifically aren't, so that
But
puts
we've
a,
always used their time, that's always been part of the service fee, because we live here, we pay taxes in general.
So that's-
Just devil's advocate, like.
That's
Somebody's gonna say it.
that's the pushback I really
Yeah, I
get.
get it. I'm listening to the
So-
pushback.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I know it's rent's cheap, but there's also a lot of risk associated with shell fishing, and right now everything's good, but that might not always be the case. And I just feel like we start a fee and then the fee might climb, and we want to keep this low cost for somebody starting out and they're trying to invest, and then we have a die off, and
Slippery slope,
it just can add up, and that's why I just wouldn't want to go down this road.
says the aquaculturist.
I mean, yeah.
But that's,
I have a vested interest in it, but I
Yeah.
also, have a track record of supporting things that don't help my business, so I'm just stating my opinion. I just don't think it's a good idea,
I think it's a good conversation to be having. It's something to look into and to discuss the pros and cons and keep discussing maybe.
I
for a
mean,
while.
it's an industry that allows people to live here. It's why I'm able to buy a house and start a family here, and I think that's giving back to the community in a way too.
and he employs people, and he, so
And I
that,
just don't think that the town should start charging more money.
I think, yeah.
So do we need to make a motion to continue discussing this, or can we just continue discussing it next time?
I don't know.
I'll just make a motion to not recommend the grant service fee.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I'd kind of like to continue the discussion.
I'm
but
not
gonna
going.
vote for it right now.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the vote?
Chip had his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead. All right.
Was
Okay.
that 5 to 2, please?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that was an abstaining.
So 5-1 and an abstain.
I'm abstaining.
I think I will abstain also.
Okay.
So what was it?
5-0
5-0
to abstain.
abstention.
What was the vote, please?
It was 5-4, 0 against, and 2 abstaining.
5. There are only 7 of you, you can't do 5.
5-4.
F-O-R.
It was just me and Becca that were abstained, and everybody else said that we don't want that.
Well, thank you for, listening and for your feedback. It's helpful. Now let's get on to the good stuff. Dave?
All right. So we should go really quick so all the librarians can get out of here. But the plastics thing, we got like a ton of feedback on it. And there's a company that wants to have, what do they say? They want us to they want us to give them ideas, like tell them like what a grow bag is and how to manufacture them. And we need to sit down as a board and talk with them, I think, and maybe have people, I think the board can do it really, because we all grow, but I'm sure every one of you would want to be involved in that, right? Like-
Was that the Joseph James guy?
Yeah, so there's that was the R&D, like manufacturing guy.
From
Yeah.
Florida?
No, that guy was we got a ton of feedback.
Yeah.
So there was a guy like at a plastics company that was obviously like saw the potential in making a lot of money off of us and was like, and the industry altogether, and wants us to be like, this is what a grow bag is. Like, what would be the best ways that we could make your job easier? And they make it in bioplastics too. So like, not only is it better for the environment, but it's also, they're willing to work with us to be like, how can, like a self-sealing bag or like something that gets
You
put
also have
under.
something, I mean, if labeling your bags is the key, so that you wouldn't, as long as, there's nothing wrong with plastic that doesn't stay in the harbor, as long as you take it out, put it
Exactly.
in, take it out, put it
Yeah.
in, throw it out when you need to throw it out,
But-
or recycle it.
Right, but I
You
think
know?
the cool thing about this company is that they actually build this stuff out of bioplastic too, so it's
Yeah,
like.
in case,
you-
just in case.
Yeah.
What do you mean bioplastic?
It's like, so that we'll have to ask, but like, yeah, so there was
Like
already one
plastic.
company too that the Center for Coastal Studies had mentioned, you know, like they were saying it was a bioplastic netting, but it's not really it just breaks down. You know what I mean? So it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, but it's not really,
It doesn't stay forever microplastics.
well, no, this one did. So
Yeah,
that's
well,
that's
I don't know
not
about
really.
that.
I thought it was that it decayed very well on land, but in the water, it doesn't break down the same.
Exactly.
So it might even be where you'd want to get Owen or Laura to like sit in on some of these meetings, or not, I don't know, just to run some things by them so that you have somebody who has some expertise on.
Well, I think that would be good, and I think I kind of want the help from the rest of you guys to, like, obviously I'm not very good at answering emails, like, you know, and I don't really know. We had said that we would sit down and get emails back, and then what we were gonna do with them.
Was this guy in the email chain? I can't,
Yeah.
who is this that we're talking about?
The plastics guy?
Yeah, the company.
So that was, he was, Joseph James.
Oh, that is,
Yeah.
okay.
And also Ketchum Trap. Ketchum is totally down with working with the rest of these people and then producing it for us. And she said she also is already working with a company called Intermus, working on biodegradable tubular netting and mussel netting.
That was the
And-
one that Center for Coastal Studies weighed in on.
Right.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I think it would still be good if people would want to do field trials, just so that they would know we're already using plastic nets, so like, it can't get,
I want
like.
to talk to the ones out of Florida who are looking into doing specifically clam netting.
Yeah.
So the other thing we got was a feedback from the Department of Aquaculture of Florida, and they were using lanolin netting, or doing like tests on lanolin netting, and they wanted to test it up here. And there's plenty of people that grow clams in different areas of the harbor, and they offered within 6 months to get us some netting to try up here. So, but this is all good stuff, but I'm not really sure like what to do now, you know? Oh, and then Michelle Inslee has been sharing a lot of our email address and this post with the East Coast Growers Association. So now we're getting a lot of feedback from up and down the coast, and which has been awesome. But
Yeah, it's just gonna be a lot to coordinate.
yeah, like how do we do that now? Like what should we do next?
Well, you
Well,
try to figure out how you're gonna get samples of stuff, you know?
Yeah, break it into
sounds like
pieces.
was-
You got the clam netting and then the oyster bags. So, the clam netting's coming out of Florida, right? And they're,
Right, do they want
it
to talk
sounded
to
like they're
individual
gung ho, they're
growers,
ready
or
to
do they
go.
want to talk to the board?
I would say the companies,
Like-
the-
I said I would prefer they talk to all of us.
Right.
You know, because we talk to other people, we are growers, like,
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to reach out to everybody as a group.
and even if, I mean, but we could take what we hear, like, if somebody comes up with an idea, we could like immediately relay that back, you know?
you get some,
Because we might, like, I thought of, like, Dana Pazal had called me, and he was like, could you get a company to make, like, you know, how our racks go, how what a rack is, and then on either end of the rack have, like, a threaded bolt, or a screw, or a plastic threaded bolt, and then have a piece of flat stock or something go down across all the bags to just screw it down. So then you would not use zip ties, or, and there's nothing to say that this plastic guy couldn't just make something like that.
right. So we need to come up with the prototypes that we need.
Exactly,
or
like
wanna try.
ideas, like drawings. We're pretty much just doing the work for like a bigger company, but we
Yeah.
benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Get a patent.
So, yeah, we would need to have some sort of meeting for everyone to weigh in on their opinion, what they'd like to see, if they have ideas like that, like his, if they've got other ideas, and then arrange to get back to them about it.
so how would we do that?
Oh, I'm happy to reach out to Joseph and the Florida people and just call them and just see what next steps we can take, and I can just report back.
Why don't you, everybody should take, I gotta admit, after a few of them, it was like a blur to me, so I kinda lost on that place. But maybe you should, like, anybody that cares a lot about it should figure out which are the ones that are the best
Yeah,
ideas.
just look at the most
And then
promising
we
and then see.
And we should have a meeting about, this is what we wanna do. We wanna send it out a request for, a proposal request to this company. We like you to be able to try and make these for us. How would you feel about making them, sending them up here, we'll try them out. If they work, we'll give you a lot of good publicity.
Well, first
It's gonna
step
be
is
a
just
trial.
maybe just reach out and get a feel for,
Yeah.
you know.
Start explaining what we already
Yeah, ask
use
what
and
they
what they
can
can
offer us,
make.
just tell them.
Do you guys want maybe, so why don't we, could we send out like a group, maybe all of us just like write what we would want specifically, specifically what we want in like gear from this plastics guy? Or maybe what if each one of us took like a
I think everybody
person.
that's got the commercial, that's, aquaculture person here should, get together amongst yourselves, figure out this is what we got, spend a couple hours one day and sharpen your pencils and look at stuff and say, okay, this is 1, 2, 3. These are 3 good ideas. Let's shop these around and see what
I was
happens.
just gonna call the guy, maybe send him some pictures, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like seems like
Say,
the
this is what
easiest
we'd
thing.
like to do.
If we work as a group though, because unless you want to report, like send us an email, you know what I mean? Then we're all working individually and then like,
Yeah, I see what you're
you
saying.
know what I mean? Like if,
Well, I was just gonna reach out to the most. I mean, if you want to take one of whichever one you would want to call, and then just reach out to the most promising ones that we've received, and then go from there.
I liked the idea that somebody had of, and obviously we'd have to find somebody to do it, but getting a grant or finding somebody that could do a literature review, kind of, maybe the Center for Coastal Studies could take that on, looking at all the things that have been published about the use of, so that like then we end up chasing leads that are good leads. And we just kind of inform ourselves in the process about what's already been done and what's out there. I don't think any of us has time to do it, but if we could figure out a way, maybe, as you're talking with Owen about the Curly report, hey, we have this, it was one of the first suggestions that came back.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea to have somebody like research and organize it and talk to all these people. It'd probably save a lot of time.
who wants to do that?
I don't know who to reach out to do it. Well, we could start putting feelers out for that.
I would
at least.
hate for this project to just go stale because it's like,
So
It's-
promising, and everybody is,
every-
all around
the
the country, all
whole
up and
East
down the
Coast
East
is
Coast
like,
has
they're
been
like,
answering.
holy crap, you guys are
Yeah.
like, please do this, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I don't think it would hurt for Jake to reach out to a couple of people.
Yeah, I'm happy, and
It's
then
not
we'll go
ideal,
from there, and then maybe we, at the same time, we can all try to think, or if we have any connections that somebody wants to take it on.
Yeah.
I think we should have that guy does want to talk with the group though, like that Joseph James.
Yeah. And I'll just see what kind of, maybe you'll have a list, or maybe you'll have a form we could all fill
Yeah,
out together, so.
his last email was I look forward to hearing back from you after your board meeting so I can get a general sense of the features. I would like sense of the features you would like new materials to have. I assume that the different items listed below might need differing materials. Once I get a better understanding, then I can brainstorm with my R&D partners to see what's possible.
Yeah.
So like, if you could just say like, this is a grow bag, this is a strap, this is a hook.
Yeah, these are the 3 items we came up with.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
Lydia is on a recycling committee.
Oh.
She has a question.
Hi,
Hey,
Lydia, I'm on to the recycling committee. I was going to suggest something similar to maybe and then ask for what would be an alternative, either, biodegradable or even possibly made of, yes, bioplastics, but also hemp and things like that, new materials that were used long ago in aquaculture and fishing would maybe be used again, that they biodegrade in a very different way than bioplastics. So something to look into.
Yeah.
If you provide the samples of what you have, they'll see what you're using and maybe be able to.
It's a good idea.
To copy it as another material.
Yeah, we have a $100 budget, so I'll suggest it to him. We could get a little package together and send it.
And maybe one of us could research his company too, just to
Yeah.
Make sure he's not.
Make something.
like it's like bio, like it's actually like not like just
Yeah.
straight up
Yeah.
petroleum.
Well, the other thing is, we did, I know you put together a list of all the things to use, if that's comprehensive, that's great, but I only saw like about 10 things on that list.
Yeah.
Those were like the most basic things.
Basic.
All right, well, why don't you come up with everything?
Let's use
Every single thing that goes in the water, why don't you come up with?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just
You
cut
get-
this up.
Well,
You get-
list it all,
you get-
maybe, you know.
Yeah,
You'll do this?
I get that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
so
call
why
a couple
using
guys and
that
then we'll go
using
from there.
that?
All right, cool.
Oh, I like this better. and-
Yeah, and then hopefully we get
Yeah,
something
maybe
out of
we'll
it
say, well,
that's
how about if we did it this
cost
way?
effective and available, because that's probably the two most important things.
And then maybe people could reach out to you too, like everybody just like Jason could be like, hey, I got an idea. Right?
Yeah.
They'll do it to you.
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. All right. Bioplastics covered.
Cool.
Curly report.
So, so with the Curly report, this was I think you all know what it is. It's a study of the marine resources of Wellfleet Harbor. It was done in over 1968 and 69. Hasn't been done in 50 years. And what we're thinking about is that it's probably time that we did a new study of the marine resources of Wellfleet Harbor. At the time, I think everybody's had a chance to look at the book. It's available electronically now. It's on the NRAB website, so you can read it. And it's a pretty detailed dive into what was going on back in 1968 and 69. So things change. Things that they weren't looking at back then were climate change, microplastics. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be thought about, and about what we would want to see if NRAB's kind of taking the lead on this, but you guys are, you make your living in the harbor. I mean, I think of any of the groups that are around. So bottom line is Dave, Becca, me, John Reel met with Owen Nichols from the Center of Coastal Studies. He did a report for Pleasant Bay. The Friends of Pleasant Bay hired him. And I think I distributed that electronic report to you guys also. So you can see what he's done now. And a lot of it had to do with, it was, figuring out what seals are eating based on what their poop is, and the plastics they came up with, microplastics and that. So some of the things, that coming up with what you would want to know in a new report would be helpful. Owen was going to put together a proposal for us, and that was going to be the next step. So this could be a brief little update right now. Once he gets back to us, we should have a meeting about it and decide where we're going to go. But one of the things, you think about is with these microplastics, has anybody studied whether, how much of them are in oysters and clams? There's got to be some report. I know that some folks, Anna Maria Frankich, she did some work on that stuff, and so it'll be nice to know.
I guess, wouldn't that kind of be out, like if this is a survey of the harbor, I mean, I think that's a good idea, but if it's gonna kind of imitate the Curly report.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. Do we really want to imitate the Curly report, or do we want to come up with one that's a little bit more like what the Friends of Pleasant Bay did, which was just figure out what's up with the idea being is that the Curly report, at the end of it, they recommended we do it every 10 years. Should be replicated so we can keep track of it. So now it hasn't been done in 50 years, so we're kind of starting like all over again. And what we want to figure out is what we want to know now. And, John Reel's optimistic. He's saying, what do we want to know in 5 years? Every 5 years, do a new report. And so, unfortunately, this comes down to the same kind of thing that maybe money would help guide you on, a report like this would help guide you on propagation. This would be a wise way to do this. And, it's just something that every place we brought it to, we went to the select board, John Reel, Laura Hewitt and me went there, and they responded well to it. They thought it was a good idea. It's basically almost everybody here's got a relationship with the harbor one way or the other. And it would be good to know what's going on with it. And, a lot of those things came down to specific, seal rise, how that's doing, water temperature, chemistry, how that's doing. And a lot of it's already been done. That's being done by the Audubon, Wellfleet Wildlife Sanctuary is doing horseshoe crabs. Association to Preserve Cape Cod's doing a herring count every year. So there's a lot of different organizations that kind of pool their stuff together. And anyways, I'm curious to see what Owen comes up with, and that's going to be the next step with that. I'd encourage you to say, some of the things that you've noticed over the course. I've been coming here since '66, but not regularly. And there's people that have been living here for a long, long time that may have noticed things or that want to know what's going on with the harbor. When I first started shellfishing, I can tell you what, there's a place I liked to shellfish. They used to be loaded with shellfish as a recreational permit, and it's not been that way. So why is that? Keep track of that kind of thing, So.
Could we add the eel to it?
Eels?
Yeah, because there used to be eel fishery.
Eels are part of it. I mean, they were part of the original Curley report. So, yeah, there's no reason.
I feel this is time sensitive because I would love to have a baseline report drawing on data that we already have before the Herring River project gets implemented, right? In other words, ideally we have it before our major dredging that we're going to start having.
Yeah, we had talked about this. We had talked about this at the.
Yeah, I didn't come to
yeah.
So, sorry. But I'd really like it to be, in conjunction with Herring River. And I'm not saying they might pay for some of it, but they have already paid for some of it because of the data that's being collected because of that. So you'd want to look at exactly what they've got and then say to Mr. Nichols, this is what we have. What more can you do and how much will it cost? Do you have any idea, just one question, how much it might cost?
Well, yeah, we asked him that. I asked him that. And he said in Pleasant Bay, they were looking at like $60,000 for the seal, the fish part of it, another 40 or 50 for the seal part of it because it was aerial surveys. And those were the two numbers I remember him throwing out. So, I had additionally thought 100,000 should probably cover something like that, but could be more, could be less, I don't know. And so it comes to, we're talking about a $49,000 employee. So, everybody wants to grab money from somewhere. I think that the money for this could be gotten from places other than like the town budget. I think that there's way to raise money. I mean, we have an Oyster Fest every year, not to speak for SPAT, but they've always been fairly generous with donating bits of money here and there. And, who knows how we can get it, but John Reel seems to feel that it's a possible, we could figure out a way to fund it. We need to figure out a way to fund it every 5 years or every 10 years. So, that's the update on that. When Owen Nichols gets back to us, I'll let you know. We can put it on the next docket.
Sweet. The next meeting, Jake picked out a date for.
Monday, January 6th. It's a 2:15 low tide. It's a 1.1.
And you're the co-chair, right? You are, right?
I guess so, yeah. Co-chair? I think I'm the vice chair.
It's the day before the select. Yeah, but we're doing only shellfish management.
What day?
plan.
I was thinking Monday, January
we'd never
6th.
do it.
It's a day before what?
Select board meeting.
Select board meeting.
Maybe we could squeeze
Oh,
it.
should
I
we
don't
do it
know.
after this?
It's before.
Oh.
You're saying that's before the select board meeting, right?
Yeah.
All right.
One day.
we'll think about that.
Because then we go into like some
So,
big ties.
so you guys all okay with January 6th?
Good for me.
All right.
Yeah.
I might
So
be
far, so
snowboarding, so you're gonna get a chair probably.
Okay.
And what time do you guys want it?
6 to 8.
6 to 8?
Do you want to pick a different day if you can't
No,
make it?
nope. It's
Was
good.
there-
Ha!
And
Share the
What
love.
was the agenda for that one?
that one was gonna be the shellfish management plan.
We could do that like in an afternoon, a little earlier in the day.
I can't meet during the day on Monday.
And then we could maybe also talk about the employee too, maybe, like maybe. And
And we have to,
They're gonna
Dave,
be here at the library.
Wait, is the employees time sensitive?
why don't we do it
Like,
at why don't we do it at the COA so it's easier for me
So
if I
who-
can get it,
Somebody has to call and do that.
like Nancy. Like
when is the,
Becca.
when would we need our recommendation by? When's town meeting for the person?
That means an
Charming.
Oh,
So
We got plenty of
the other, okay, so we got that done.
But I was like, obviously the way my brain works, I was trying to get, if Shellfish Advisory was gonna be on board, then I can, when I go to FinCom, I can say I have Shellfish Advisory board on board or not.
Well, we gotta get going,
You guys can
and,
do whatever you
but
want.
before we get going, Steven wanted to say something to Zach about the Herring River, right? And then he can give us like
I have
official
one more
Herring.
thing after too.
Alright, cool, so let's just like really get through it quick so the librarians can leave.
I think it's time for the board to pay attention to what's going on with it, because it can affect the whole economy of Walford. Because when Egg Island gets washed away, and it keeps on heading towards Lieutenant's Island, whatever comes out of the river, sets us down for could happen, 2-month window in the middle of our summer, when we're making all our money. Because the amount of pollution that's gonna come out of it. But they don't know that's gonna happen or not, but it's not gonna happen, but we can't give you any places to go if there's a problem. So wait a minute, it's not gonna happen, but we're not gonna give you an alternative source or location to put your oysters on a rack somewhere, you can purge them at the seashore, so that we can keep in business. And it's something that needs to be thought about very seriously.
So maybe the SAB could put that on the agenda to get some,
Because the problem is if we end up with a pollution problem on Egg Island, nobody can sell their product for 2 months. Then we're gonna end up with another situation. When they are sellable, they're gonna be at the time when there's a glut in the market. Okay, and all those people are gonna be trying to compete with the other ones that already sold their product. So this stuff's gonna be worth nothing. So it's a situation where we need the seashore to take responsibility, and they don't want to. We gotta figure out how to make this work so that we have a place to put the product, so it can purge if it needs to. It's gotta be some kind of contingency plan so that people can keep running their businesses.
so maybe I'll put that on the agenda that Zach, so.
Yeah, and I'll just say briefly, I kind of need help. I mean, Stephen and I were at the stakeholders meeting and we asked the
I
questions,
was
right?
there, yeah.
Yeah,
We-
they couldn't give us no answers.
And it's not the first time.
So maybe this can be like a SAB, the Shellfish Advisory Board from the town can ask, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Do your
some
thing.
other route. I mean, that's what I'm there for.
I asked the question of the first time I had a meeting in the senior center. I don't know what year that building was built. Okay?
Yeah.
That's when I started.
Yeah.
I asked whether or not, and this was my plan. It was very simple to go to the west side of the settlement. The town of Wellfleet to be named the Shellfish grant. Whatever area you needed was turned over to the town of Wellfleet and you, so the grant wasn't in your name. For the period of time it took to solve the problem. At the end of that problem, the grant was gone.
So
And
maybe,
the answer was, we're not gonna have a problem.
Right.
Don't worry about it out.
Same as now.
so maybe we can just have like people from the public come to the SAB meeting and voice their concerns to you about the Herring River project. And maybe we could, I don't know anything really, like I went to that meeting and I was like, I support it, but like my feeling about it is
Yeah.
like, I don't know, so.
I want to be very clear, I
Hi,
don't,
excuse me.
go ahead.
Eva Nicholasky. So I think this is a good contingency. This is me, I've been sitting in on meetings. However, what would be compelling and useful would be numbers, right?
So maybe we could get that at the SAB meeting then.
Well, whatever the forum, whether it's the next stakeholders meeting or me talking at the Carrollton River Technical Committee meetings that I go to once a month. Well, and the parks, and I know the executive council, right, would be worst case scenario. How much would have to be moved to another location? What are the numbers? And numbers not leaseholders, but what are the numbers out there now? How many racks, you see what I mean?
And how much economic damage that would cause.
Okay, no, wait. That's a reason to do it, but I'm talking about a practical solution. So if you look at the park, or you look at some other part of the harbor, and you say, this is how much we want you to purge, for how long, we don't know, but this is how much. That is a very concrete thing that can be answered. And
Well, why don't we just do this at the next meeting so we can get out of here and the librarians can leave and we won't be rude.
Can we also
That's fair.
add, is the town making any similar concerns with dredging? A couple of us have grants right along where they're gonna be dredging. You can't buy crop insurance for that kind of thing.
So-
So what if they screw up and we're out, I can't move my cohogs.
So why
At
don't
least
we,
the oysters can be
You can't
moved,
move out cohogs out.
right?
so why don't we put,
But I'm looking at the big picture of people being out of business, the amount of.
So we
she
could-
says it's 25%.
we could put the Herring River and dredging
Yeah.
on an agenda if you guys want to talk about that. And I think this meeting's adjourned. It's done.
Works.
Dave,